The following program will make you want to grow things and experience new and wonderful dreams about your plants, garden, and garden design. Listener participation is strongly advised. Good evening and welcome to Down the Garden Path with your hosts, Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing, right here on Reality Radio 101. To get on board right now, dial 905-725-1907. Toll free in North America, 1-866-905-7325. Worldwide, 1-866-656-5477. Send us an email right now. Our email address is instudio101@gmail.com. And now, ladies and gentlemen, right to your hosts of Down the Garden Path, Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing.
Thank you and welcome everyone to Down the Garden Path, where we discuss down-to-earth tips and advice for your plants, gardens, and landscapes. As landscape designers and gardeners, we think it is possible and it's very important to have great gardens that are low maintenance, and we want to help you make it happen. I'm Joanne Shaw, landscape designer and owner of Down-to-Earth Landscape Design. I've been designing beautiful gardens for homeowners east of Toronto for over a decade. With me is my co-host, Matthew Dressing. Welcome, Matthew.
Welcome back, Joanne. Good evening, everyone. I'm Matthew Dressing, horticulturist and landscape designer and owner of Natural Affinity Designs. Natural Affinity is a landscape design and garden maintenance firm servicing Toronto and the Eastern GTA. Joanne and I enjoy doing Down the Garden Path each week, bringing you interesting, relevant, and helpful topics to help you achieve a great garden. We learn right along with you, from each other, from our research, and from the guests that join us here on the show. As always, we welcome your questions via social media, emails, and phone calls.
That's right. And we want to thank you, as always, for joining us here live Down the Garden Path, and to let anybody know that you can also subscribe to Down the Garden Path podcast on your favorite podcast app for our live updates as when new episodes go live. Updates when new episodes go live. And we'd love for you to share with your fellow gardening friends and let them know about our show and our podcast. So, hello.
Hello, welcome back.
Thank you. I know. Did you miss me?
You know what? I was just going to say.
Joanne, do you know where your muster station is?
I do.
Good for you.
It was G1, Gary.
Very good. You know what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, no, he
no
did
clue.
No clue. Yeah,
that's in case of an emergency on the ship or something. You need to go there.
Station.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
I did know. I've never been on a cruise.
There you go. I definitely recommend it. So we had a good time. Yes. So I'm back. I don't know if I was saying to you, like the weather for the Caribbean, the weather wasn't super, super hot. But compared to here, we can't complain, right? So it was lovely. So yeah, back from vacation and trying to get back into the swing of things. So so
our guests had questions. They were wondering.
Did
where
they?
You were,
Well,
so.
thank you for holding down the fort. I hear you had a great show last week. I'm dying to listen to it. So
yeah, we had the bonsai group on, Toronto Bonsai Society on,
Ooh.
and we had a really great show. Mike and wow, I'm gonna totally blank on her name, but
you told me
Carolina. Sorry,
Carolina.
Mike,
yes.
Carolina. We're on, and they were here. We had a wonderful conversation. So there's lots of information
Excellent.
about that. And that was the final part.
That's right. Our final month
of our houseplants month. So welcome to March, everyone.
Mhm.
It came in, I think, like a lamb.
It kind of did.
Right, so we're
Yep.
expecting some storms later on, or at
That's
least I am.
right.
See if that holds true. But with a new month comes a brand new subject here on Down the Garden Path.
Mhm.
And this month, we're talking about growing.
Yeah.
So
Kind of a little bit more general, but it is the time of year everybody's getting excited about starting things, right?
Right.
Growing.
getting growing.
So we left it purposefully vague. How's
Yeah.
that? Or all encompassing, either way, positive or,
I think, nice all-encompassing, right?
Yeah.
Because we're all going to we're starting different things in different gardens and different spaces.
Mhm.
So I think, all-encompassing, a good starting off point with a bunch of stuff. So, we're going to talk about starting seeds and cuttings and things inside to, starting up your new garden bed. We're going to talk about cut gardens or cut
Mhm.
flower gardens. We have a couple guests later in the month on
That's
the show.
right.
So lots of cool things about just getting growing.
Yes, and from the different groups online, I notice everybody's getting itching to start their seeds and
Right.
to start some things. And for the most part, everybody, it's still a little too early. So I'm because part of me was like, what? Like don't have a package of seeds in front of me, but I'm pretty sure it's too soon. I asked you. Yeah,
I have a
know.
whole pile in my
I
coat
know.
pocket, and
It's
it's just
okay.
I'm going to get them.
Oh, are you going to get them
you
from your
just
coat?
talk
Okay.
for a second.
I can talk by myself for a second. And I'm thinking to myself, I know the seed packages will tell you how many days, how many weeks from the last frost date. And I'm thinking, man, it still seems pretty early in February. Because we know the last frost date is like May 24. So yes. So I was thinking it was too early, and in fact it is. So you can start getting stuff ready, right? You can and that's what we're going to talk about a lot about today is what supplies you need, how to pick. I think some people are still ordering their seeds online, which you can still do,
Yeah.
right? Or go into your local garden center. Yeah.
Yeah,
So there's lots to talk about.
lots to talk about. And if you are looking to buy seeds and you still haven't, definitely get out and take a look. A lot of some of the staple stuffs are always in supply, but some of the rarer or more interesting varieties, especially things like the super hot peppers, if you don't get them, if you want to grow them in seed and you don't like to get them in plant, things like that, they're hard to get or harder to find. So definitely take a look now. Go out and grab them. And get ready to go.
Yes. And that is the one time when you can, because I know we have U.S. and Canadian listeners, and that we can't cross border with plants and bulbs and things like that. But I believe you can order, some of the seed companies in the U.S. will ship to Canada, and some of the Canadian seed companies will ship to the U.S. So it is the one time where gardeners can kind of ignore the border. Don't you think?
Exactly.
Yeah. So just read the fine print on their websites and on their catalogs.
Right.
But I definitely saw lots of recommendations of different companies, different companies going back and forth. And I kind of thought that was interesting because I think you think that you would just have to buy local, right? And it's a good thing to buy local for sure. For sure. So we are talking growing. So please follow along on social media. We're going to have every month kind of the same graphic and kind of talk about the different. Each week we'll have a different topic. It just showed me that the month of February was too short for, even though we did have 4 weeks for houseplants because there's so many houseplants to talk about. But it was nice to do a deep dive on the few that we were able to cover.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah.
Yeah, so go back and listen. If you're just tuning in, then go back and to Down the Garden Path for the month of February, and we did a deep dive on some of those. So that is great.
That's right. As the days grow longer,
Mm-hmm.
dividing and starting little cuttings and offshoots or divisions of your plants become a thing. So I
Okay.
was kind of thinking that if you missed this in February or you had something, you're going to start a house plant. We were talking earlier, like you're ready to start some new succulents or
Right.
break off some leaves or take some ivy cuttings or something like
Yeah,
that.
I mean, my Wandering Jew and some of my
Yeah.
Kythos and some of my spider plants. Yes, I've been starting new plants because I want to use those in my annual containers come summer, right? So it's nice.
Good
Like, so
for
I'm starting those in water primarily. I haven't done any in soil yet. I know the succulents is the thing to do in the soil.
But I was just thinking that's kind of a way that, if you're starting off that way with your house plants we still have some room to talk
That's
about
right.
some houseplants. Yeah. So it's not going to,
Yeah.
Anyways,
Excellent.
there we go.
So to start the conversation, so please, if you have questions about growing indoors, about soils, about fertilizing, about lights, please let us know what your questions are. We will do our very best to answer them. What's your question?
Did you say
okay.
and they
you
can write us here?
Yeah, and you can write us here at instudio101@gmail.com. Yeah, that helps to give them the address, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. The benefits of a non-edited show. Yes, there you go, everybody. So we want to thank you for joining. And I know that there are, and Matt and I kind of are opposite ends of the spectrum. So if you absolutely are not into it and don't get why people want to start seeds, and that seems like a lot of work, then you're definitely in my camp, because I think it does sound like a lot of work with, no guaranteed results. Right? I think that's my thing, right? If you can guarantee me 100% that it's going to work, I'm in. But I think other people do like the challenge and like to try it out and just miss gardening this time of year. And so they want to get their hands in the soil. Economically, especially if you've got a lot of annuals that you want to grow, instead of buying them all, you can grow them. So there's lots of reasons why people do and don't start their seeds inside.
That's right.
Correct.
And you touched on a good one too, economics, right? Just having, when it comes down to it, if you can grow 5 nasturtium plants or go out and buy 5, fully grown 4-inch pots, right? There's $25 versus, and I've got nasturtiums right here, $3.35 in Canada, or $2.99 in the States.
Yeah.
Right.
So soil, so you're at like $5 or $6.
Yeah,
Yes.
So.
Yep.
Yeah. So definitely, for sure. Just before we keep going, Harry writes in, hello, always love the show. Thank you, Harry. Besides hostas, are there any other plants with some color that do well in the shade with little or no sun? Just asking and hoping. Harry. Just got a little bit off of topic, but that's okay, because you know what, Harry, you could be starting them indoors.
Yes,
you might
for
be
sure.
looking for some shade, perennials, types of things like that.
Yeah. What pops into your mind?
What pops into my, first of all, like I was just trying to think of what he said there. The heucheras for sure. Just all the different shade plants with the color of the foliage.
Right.
Just initially probably jumped off because of things like hostas.
Yes. And I was thinking the same family as the tiarellas, right? That love dry shade as well.
Yeah.
So the heucheras are more foliage, like finding their flowers fairly insignificant.
Yeah.
But yes, you can get different colored foliage ones, that kind of contrast nicely with hostas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Another one that just jumps to mind, just talking about, starting things indoors, Browalia.
Oh,
so
familiar.
It's a small shade annual. It kind of makes like a little dome, almost impatient-like or impatient-esque like flowers. Nice 1x1 dome. Fills up quite nicely, that you could use in the shade as well.
Okay.
I do believe it doesn't like super dry shade. It does need a little bit of moisture, but yeah.
Okay. And I'm thinking of a shrub, and I believe it's one of the shrubs of the year this year, is the Sun King Aralia.
Yes,
so
definitely.
Aralia. Also doesn't like super dry. It certainly needs some water to get established. But it'll be like a 3x5 or 5, because it's going to be a nice size shrub.
Mm-hmm.
No real flower to be noticeable, but it's a lovely line, hence the Sun King. It seems odd that something called Sun King would grow in the shade, but it is like this lovely chartreuse color.
Yeah.
Which also makes me think of the Japanese forest grass. Is also a lovely chartreuse, and looks great with especially some of the darker hostas. Again, needs a little bit more water or more, organic. What's the word?
Organic matter?
More
like compost?
Compost,
Mm-hmm.
Like a better soil.
Right.
Yeah, so there's some of the few, Harry. So thank you for kicking off the show by letting us stretch our brains as to what plants we can plant outside. So I never thought that you could grow heuchera inside. So that's interesting.
I have seen some people who have had them, like they've taken in the little 4-inch ones and started them inside.
Okay.
And I wish I could think about it. There's a book, and I forget who writes it or who wrote it and what it's called, but I think it's something like 100 houseplants, you didn't know you could have.
Oh.
And there are different perennials and annuals and more like traditional outdoor kind of things.
Oh, okay, that you can grow inside.
That you could grow inside too.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
Yes,
maybe
we
I'll
should
take a look for that book.
Yeah.
The name and title, and I'll post it. Actually, I'll just write myself a note in a second. I'll try to post it on our Facebook group. So if you haven't joined yet, take a look, Down the Garden Path podcast. Pardon me. And we have our Facebook group that we've kicked off at the beginning of the year. So you can join us after the show or in between and find all these cool things that we can post and share with you that you may or may not be able to see on live radio.
That's right.
Right?
That's right. That's good. So
growing indoors.
I know. Where do you start? Do you start with the soil and the trays? Do you start with the lights? I mean, I think soil and tray, I think the trays, if you save your trays from last year, they have to be clean. Obviously, the one biggest thing, right, with anything indoors and starting from seeds is cleanliness. So everything's got to be really clean.
Yes. Sanitation is key.
Yes.
Because once you start getting molds, any pathogens or insects that might be hiding in your soil,
right,
fungus gnats or things like that, that can definitely knock out your seed. And we don't have anything like for the seeds and the cuttings and whatever. We don't have anything like damp off anymore.
Right.
Right. So that it would like that fungicide that would kill anything. So the closest that I like, just cultural controls, right? Keeping the air circulation moving, watching your watering, misting versus just soaking everything
right
off the top. But the Wilson's rooting hormone, rooting compound. So if you're doing cuttings or you have something, it has a little bit of a fungicide in it.
Oh, okay.
So you can get away with that way.
Okay.
Otherwise,
but you don't dip the seeds in those.
Right.
Or anything,
Other than
right?
that, just the air circulation for things like the seeds. But
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So like we said, it's still too early really for on most things, right, to start. But you can start getting, your trays. If you're going to get new ones, great. If you're going to use ones that you've got left in the garage, then now's a good time to wash them and dry them out.
Yeah.
And potting soil. So when you're buying indoor potting soil, is there a seed starting potting soil that's different from another potting soil?
Yeah, there is. So you get you'll often see it like seedlings and sprouts. I know, and I've mentioned them before for Fard. I love my Fard. But they have a seedling and sprout soil. So it's just got a little bit of extra drainage. And it has a little bit more, some moisture retention in it as well. So it drains, it allows the air to enter the medium, but also keeps the moisture in contact with the seed.
Okay.
So basically just allows the seed to grow into optimal conditions. And then you can pot it up into something like your everyday houseplant soil. So whether it's your Miracle Grow potting mix or your Fard houseplants and tropicals mix or whatever, Pro Mix, you could name probably 9 more brands. But, whatever is there. And again, just sterile and clean. And
okay.
And
now, I'm kind of picturing everybody, starting in those, and some of the pictures I've seen online in the Facebook groups and things are that people starting in trays. And then they have like all these itty bitty plants. And then you've got to carefully, when those plants get bigger, move them to like a 4-inch pot. Can we just start with a 4-inch pot or...
You can, but just watch that, because what people like to do, especially when they've got already fully grown houseplants or they pot anything up, they think that all the extra soil has to be moist. Right? So then they soak this thing and then rot sets in or something else, insects come in.
So that's the danger of starting in a bigger pot.
Right.
With seed, like little seeds.
Right.
Especially. Okay.
Yeah. So then if you rot out the seed or you just, it starts to grow, but then it's growing, it needs more water, and you pile on the seed and the root's barely a centimeter, half an inch long, and then you're like, what? And then it dies or it gets moldy or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So it is worth it, definitely kind of starting up, depending on how experienced you are or what system you have, if you have a greenhouse or whatever, for sure. I know you can do it too if you have just like an empty tray and you want to go into some 4 inches or like a 3-inch, you can just in an empty tray,
right,
with some drainage, just fill up all your soil and scatter your seeds like you would in the garden. And then just as they pop up, you can just, let them get so big, like a half an inch to an inch.
And then just like with a little spoon or something.
Right. The end of a handle of a spoon, just kind of pot them up into something a little bit bigger.
Okay.
Yeah, like their own little 3-inch or a 2-inch or something like that.
Now, if you wanted to keep them in the tray, would you and then I hear people like thinning them out. So now you it's like survival of the fittest, right? So the ones that look the best, like you might have 50 of them germinate, but, 20 are going to be the better ones, right? So then now you're, instead of taking the good ones out, you're taking the bad ones out,
Right.
right? The weaker ones.
Right. So you're calling because the little guys are going to compete with the big guys.
Right.
Yeah. Or the big guys are going to try to steal from the little guys, but the little guys are going to still interfere.
Okay.
And then if you're growing things like tomatoes, right?
Yeah.
Right. You're growing a 6-foot tomato, and that's going to give you, thousands of tomatoes, and you can barely finish one plant. You've got 20 more,
Right.
and 8 are not good. Like,
Yeah.
So you got to kind of think of it that way. Even when you're like growing your annuals, for example, right? So if you grow all these, like if Harry started the Browalia, for example, they're all growing one by one, but he's got like a 10 by 10 space, and he grows like 300 of them.
Right.
Right. How many is he? Why you've got so many more than you actually need.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is something for people to consider,
Right.
especially tomato plants and pepper plants, right?
Right.
Just because, there might be 30 seeds in the package, you don't need to start 30, right?
Right.
And I know not everyone will germinate, but what's a good, is there a rule of thumb, like a good number? Like, do you start 10 and hope that 4 make it, or does it really depend?
Yeah, it kind of depends on how many you're after. I guess the general, if there was a general rule, if you think about like the cell packs. So if you don't know what a cell pack is, because might be another term, there's just those little plastic trays that have like 4 little plugs,
Right.
or like
that you can kind of squeeze them out the bottom. Like, it's a much thinner, squeezable.
black flexi plastic. Yeah,
Yes.
you can't recycle it or anything, but all the roots are in there. So usually for each of those little sections or cells, they call them, you would start up to 3 seeds.
Oh,
Right.
really?
So you'd say have like 12 seeds per cell,
Oh.
knowing you're probably going to have some fail for sure.
Right.
And then you might have 2 or 3 that are in the same cell, or 1 or 2 in the same cell that are just weak.
Because I know
You
I've
kill
bought them at I've bought them already started at the garden center, and then you're walking to the car and you realize oh, wait a minute, there's one whole cell that's empty. I really just only I thought I bought 4 plants, but I bought 3.
Yes.
Right? Because nothing happened in the 4th, and the 3 are so overgrown that you don't realize it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then they're so packed in there, and the way they didn't get the air circulation, like you might not get your seeds, so the one gets killed or outcompeted, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
So the general rule is kind of like 3 per cell.
Okay.
Kind of the standard.
Yeah. Okay. And so the seed packages or where you bought them from will give you usually the date information. They'll give you, sometimes some seeds need some kind of, I'm going to call, sometimes they need stratification, right? They need to be roughed up.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they need to be dampened. I know morning glories, don't they? I know my mother-in-law, if she's listening, puts them in like a wet paper towel for a few days before planting them, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes some seeds need something before planting.
Yeah, there's there's a structural dormancy, or there's an embryonic dormancy that needs to be broken, so that water gets in there and activates the embryo. Or you need both, double dormancy, where it's structurally and embryonic, so they need to be roughed so that water can get in there and start to activate them. Or they need a winter or something like that. It's just kind of going on as you read the package.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm trying to read the package, but I don't have my glasses. But I'm not. So I have nasturtiums in front of me. So the instructions literally say, 2 seeds in each individual 4-inch pot of well-drained seed starting mix, 3 weeks before last expected frost date. So you see, people, we've got time. I know everybody's keen and people are really getting started. And I don't know, they could be having I guess if you have a greenhouse that you can move them out to, then maybe you can start earlier. For the rest of us, that's not necessarily the case. So then it says to cover with 1 inch deep of soil and provide strong light. Source. Okay, when seedlings have several sets of leaves, pinch out the weaker. And then when weather is above 50 or above 10 degrees Celsius, you can gradually start acclimating them outside. Yeah. I know, you have all this by heart, and I'm reading it. But, but anyway, so that's nasturtiums. But I just want people to know. Oh, we've got a great question here from Jane.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and that's quite on topic, Jane. That's exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So Jane says, hi, what seeds should we be starting now indoors, if any? I want to grow pumpkins for my grandchildren this year, and I was told that pumpkins have/need a very long growing season. Too early to start, ? From Queens, New York City. So thanks, Jane, for writing in. Thank you for letting us know where you are. We always love hearing where you're
that really
from.
helps, Jane.
For sure. Yeah, pumpkins can be one of those ones that you want to start in, not as early as like tomatoes, like 8 weeks to 12, depending on the variety, which, I mean, 8 weeks away from our last frost date, and possibly yours as well, Jane, just in New York City.
Yeah.
May 2/4 weekend, right?
Yeah.
So you get into March 2/4 and you're 8 away.
Yes, for sure. And I think also when people say that it's a long season, I don't think by starting them early, like you're not shortening that season, or you're not helping because that's the growing season.
Right.
Starting the seeds earlier, and I think that's a common misconception, right? Oh, they take long to grow, so I should start them earlier. But that's not necessarily the case, because they need that warmth, they need to be outside, pollinated, and in the ground, right?
Yeah, they still need all of that.
Quote unquote growing season.
Right. It just tends to be that it takes X days from germination to a maturity point in which like the flowers will appear or the fruit could be ripened and things like that.
Right.
Yeah. So take a look, Jane, at your pumpkin, because it might say start 3 weeks in, and another one might say start 5. But then, watch on it. It'll tell you how far out those seeds to harvest.
Right.
So just knowing that, you might want to, if you have a very long growing season one, because it's a little bit more tropical maybe than it is.
It might be fun to get two kinds,
right.
Jane, where one is one might be a slightly shorter growing season compared to the other. Because I know with kids, it's really like the faster
they want to see the harvest.
The faster the sense of accomplishment or whatever it's called.
Yeah,
gratification of it being done. So I think in your case, I would definitely try to plant 2 different varieties, and there might only be 2 weeks between them, right? Yeah. But still gets you something so the kids can see something's happening at all different stages, right?
Right. If a fruit's too late, the winter might come and kill them, or the frost might. But and then if it's earlier, they have more fun, right?
Right.
And then they harvest the earlier one, and they have another one coming.
Right.
So,
for sure. Now, they do take a lot of space, so we hope you have lots of space in Queens, New York for those plants. They do take a lot of space. The pumpkins like to ramble, and don't they?
Yes, and I was just going to say, and they like to spread out because they are a vine, and they actually like to roll a bit downhill. So you don't need like falling down a hill or off a cliff.
Right.
But just a slight grade going down, they like to kind of spread out and go that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, good luck, Jane. You'll have to report back and let us know if you started some seeds inside and how you made out.
That's right. Mm-hmm. That's right.
So I think we covered, some things that I think people are unsure of.
Mm-hmm.
So really, and the tricky part I find is when sometimes people share seeds. Mm-hmm. So you may not have the package, right? You may not know, or if you harvested, I think some people, this blows my mind because also not something I would do, but taking the seeds from like last year's tomato plants and in the fall, drying them and saving those seeds, right? So now you have no idea, really. So what do you do in that case, Matt? Do you just kind of gauge it by generally tomatoes are this many weeks?
Yeah, I would try to find out, if, for example, if you shared them with me, I would say, okay, well, what did you grow?
Right.
Yeah.
But sometimes people don't know.
Right. And if I grabbed it from, Home Depot and threw it in my planter, then whatever. Yeah, what do you do? Just kind of, average it. They need so many weeks before the frost date, and I would just kind of try to go up from there.
Right, which is easy for things like we know are kind of standard, like tomatoes and peppers, that type of thing, right? But if they're, nasturtiums and morning glories, those types of things that are fairly common. Yeah. But if it was this rare heirloom tomato, it's a little trickier.
That would be trickier. I would hope that being a rare heirloom tomato, they would be like, I'm really into tomatoes, and I know which one it is. But
yes. We would hope.
Yes, you would hope. But you can always try to look it up if you kind of know,
yes,
the plant type. It is a tomato,
right,
or it is a ligularia, or know it's
Yeah, for sure. And there is a whole bunch of other veggies that people like to grow that certainly doesn't need a lot of time, like your lettuce and your beets and your cucumbers even, right? They are
Right.
pretty quick. They're much so. I think they are definitely ones that you're starting the seeds really in April.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't have the exact, every seed package is going to be different, and everybody where you are and your last frost date is going to be different. So
Right.
so I shouldn't say April because I don't know where you are. But for our zone 5B and our last frost date being that May 24, between May 20th and May 24, then that's what you're looking at. So that's one of the most important things on your seed package.
Yeah, definitely. And I can hear someone in like California or Florida or
I
somewhere
know.
really warm right now going, "Oh, I did that like 5 weeks ago." or
That's
something
right. That's
like
right. You've already growing tomatoes,
I'm
right?
growing like
California?
that. Yeah. But just to Jane's other little point about things starting now, Jane, if you've got like an outdoor cold frame or a cooler area or some good lighting, maybe you have some indoor grow lights, you could be growing some short seasoned or some radishes or some spinaches or some lettuces or something, just some cut and come again type of things that you could be growing for some cool season, fresh, quick greens to be growing and consuming as well.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, that's great.
You had asked where do you kind of start
Yes.
with things. And the first thing that jumped to my mind, and we kind of moved into some other things too, and you don't have to start here, but I was doing some repotting and I was being just kind of catching up with my plants and I was being neglectful. So I kind of had a day where I just kind of played with them and got them ready. But the one thing that I really wanted being inside was I realized I don't really have a nice big surface that I don't have to put like a blanket or a bag down or something to put dirt on and to like mix things with.
Oh.
Right. So I was thinking, oh, you know what? I could really use, and I know I have something at, the garden center that I work with, like a little tray with a little high back to it. So it's almost like this little garden tray where I can put all my stuff on
Okay.
and just, keep it on a shelf in an extra closet or, somewhere like that. And I can pour out all my dirt and mix everything and take cuttings and put stuff down on a clean surface where I can mix dirt and put plants
Right.
and not have to worry about infection and that kind of stuff. Or start seeds and spill some and who cares. So that might be one of the first things starting indoors as well is, do you have a little space or a little nook or a cranny or a nice little tray that with a little bit of a lip? Mine has a bigger lip at the back and a smaller lip at the front for my hands.
Okay. And
And
where
then-
did you get the tray from? From
I
work?
just got it from work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's kind of just a nice recycled 5-year UV stable plastic and
Right.
super easy,
Okay.
washable. Doesn't drain because you don't want your soil leaking out.
Yes.
If
Yeah.
you do have to pour water, that was another thing that I liked about it too, is that I can fill it with water, kind of like the sink. If I have a bunch of little plants that need some quick watering or need a soak to drop some extra water because they wilted, I can
Okay.
just kind of flood it, use it as a little flood table, and let them suck up some extra water as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So just like a little versatile tray, kind of like just organizes my stuff, but gives
Right.
me a surface to play on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good. And there we go. We've got another question. So Karen has written in, are there better potting sales for fruits and vegetables rather than houseplants? Or can I use the same soil? What recommendations would you suggest for each if different? Thanks. Thank you, Karen.
Yeah. Good question. For the most part, just a regular, and especially because again, we're up here in the GTA Toronto area. We would just use like a houseplant soil
Right.
kind of thing. We don't have anything because citrus and those kind of tropical fruits aren't so prevalent
Right.
up here. So we would just use a tropical houseplant soil. If you are somewhere, Karen, like in the farther south, Arizona, California, you may or may not have like a citrus specific soil.
Okay.
Pardon me. So you may have something a little bit more specific. You guys, or the states tend to have a few more citrus-specific fertilizers and other amendments as well.
Would you even start strawberries inside? Like I think of them as a fruit. Would you start strawberries?
You can by
Okay.
seed.
Okay.
They are one of those ones that are even longer. Some of them
They're really
longer
hard.
than tomatoes. Like you
Okay.
started them in like December,
Okay.
and you're running them through. Yeah.
Okay. So not that. So I think not a lot of fruits that we can necessarily start inside. But if you are I think it's a difference in that if you're talking about vegetables
Yeah.
and you're wanting to start the seeds, then we kind of go back to the seed starting mixes, right? That are thinner and a little bit more moisture, holds a little bit of moisture.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, yeah, I saw fruits and I went immediately like the
Yes.
citrus and bigger apples and different stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay.
If you are going to grow fruit, Karen's just thinking about things like apples, pears, things like that. When they cross-pollinate, they won't give you true to seed variety. So if you like a Honeycrisp apple and you save your Honeycrisp apple seeds, they're going to give you something different.
Okay.
So it'll be Honeycrisp plus the other parent to give you a third thing,
Right.
a different thing.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's where you take cuttings or buy one specifically.
Right. But if we do go back to Karen's message, if you are doing some cuttings of houseplants that you're wanting to start grow new plants, then pretty much your general one is fine for most houseplants.
Yeah.
Succulents and cacti, I would say that'd be more of a cacti.
Right. Take
Soil.
more of the specific
Yes.
soil.
Yeah, definitely. African violet one, if you're going to propagate African violet leaves, then in that case, you can be a little bit more specific, because now is also a really great time to do that, especially since it's still a little early. I think for most of us, starting seeds, then, if you do want to kind of get your hands dirty with soil, then you can, kind of get some of your houseplants growing.
Yep. And that's what I did. I have my little string of pearls. I had them cuttings in water and
Ooh, I
potting
wouldn't
them
mind
up.
some string of pearls cuttings.
Okay.
Do you
Mine are just growing on.
Oh, okay.
But I will keep you in mind for
Yes,
sure. If
please.
they take, I'm happy to share
definitely,
for sure.
definitely,
They're
for
really
sure.
hard to find.
Yeah,
They're just
they really
kinda
are.
Coming back.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So that is your soil. That kind of, I think, covers our soil, and I do want to go into soil temperatures a little bit, or like, is lighting enough for the soil temperature, or do we need to make sure that they're in a warm, like not in the basement, that they're in a warm room?
Yeah. So the light, like direct sunlight, will warm up the soil to a point,
Right.
as we know it does. But you're correct. If you're like sealed in a basement and the ambient temperature is like 8 degrees
Yes.
or something like
And
that.
it still could be sunny, but it's still cool in the basement, right?
That'll still affect the temperature of the soil. So
Okay.
so the soil should be, pardon me, roughly in the range of about 18, say like 16, 17, 18 to about 27 degrees.
Okay.
There's a sweet spot at about 22.
Okay.
But another kind of just way of looking at it, or a general rule, is that whatever your whatever your room temperature is, your soil temperature should be about plus 6 degrees Celsius.
Okay.
If you are in, if your room no one's room is going to be 27 degrees Celsius, that puts you in the 30s.
Right.
You'd be burning things out, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
so there is some play with that range.
Yes.
You kind of have to be.
Yeah.
That's why the 22, 23 seems to be a
Yes.
nice spot. But yeah, definitely keeping the soil warm enough.
Okay.
For sure. Yep. The roots will detect that soil temperature and slow down and or stall out. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And Walter's written in. So hi, Joanne and Matt. Love the topics tonight. My question, I know that you had a show in the past about growing cannabis. Any future shows planned for this? I'm going to try and grow my own cannabis this year. Thanks. Excellent, Walter. We did do 2 shows. Did we only do 2?
We did.
We
kinda
did too. Yeah, so you still can get those shows on our podcast. So you definitely can search back through our podcast on your favorite podcast app. The first show especially, right, was how to kind of start.
Right.
And so we haven't talked about doing another one yet because we just felt like we just did them. But if you have anything specific and it helps to know, are you growing them from a clone? Are you trying to start the seeds? Because I think that is one thing. If you did, or if you're doing seeds, then you should have started by now, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
We think it's a little bit of a longer period than tomatoes, or you should be starting soon. If we do have anybody growing cannabis out there, then please feel free to chime in and correct us.
Yes.
But if you are starting from a clone, then you still have time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
as
Walter,
well.
if you want to have a little bit more of a discussion and kind of have us answer us back or send you something, if you want to go and post on the Facebook page, we'd be happy to kind of link you to the show, or if you want to ask some specific questions, we can definitely talk to you about a little bit more in depth there too.
Yeah, for sure. And anybody else who's got questions about that.
That's right. You can always
Excellent.
reach
So
us
that
here.
is Down the Garden Path podcast
Right.
As a Facebook group.
Yeah.
And
That's it.
that's where you can find us.
Got it.
So temperature is important. Sun is important. Do you need light, like to purchase lights, or is the window light enough at this stage? I mean, again, we're still a few weeks out before we can start, depending on where people are, for sure. But
yeah, unless your seeds, something like, for example, petunia, need like actual light to break the embryonic dormancy type thing to grow, then you're okay with just kind of a warm
sunny
window, or even not a sunny window, just somewhere where it's moist, the temperature is there, and the seed's under the soil anyways, and it's going to grow out, right? So it doesn't see any sunlight there. But as they do germinate, you do want to start to move them into somewhere where it's higher light. So whether it's in a south window, and you can just adapt them straight to direct sunlight, or if you do have grow lights, keeping them anywhere from that 4 inches or so from above, and raising them as they grow, that just prevents them from getting really leggy and stringy. And
yes, kind of reaching for the light.
Right, because you want them to inside keep them nice and dense and compact, correct? Because we don't have all that room for these big, long, stringy seeds.
So should you be trimming them and like cutting them back? Is that a thing?
Yes, but depending on the variety, like you don't want to see like the seed just opens and you get the cotyledons, the fake leaves, right? Those are just the embryo leaves. You want a few, depending on the variety, a couple sets of leaves before you would do it. And then some don't like to be cut back at all. So just depending on what you've got. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But keeping that light nice and low and nice and bright, that will keep them compact and hopefully avoid any of those stretching issues for aesthetics, but also then just the space issues.
Okay. And I think you hinted at the top of the show, because we don't have the chemicals to kind of control the mold and the mildew type of thing, that there's other things. Like one is watering with a spray bottle instead of like with a watering can. So you mentioned a fan, so circulating, keeping the air moving.
Yeah. Just keeping the air moving for sure. And the example is I had some growing in my living room because I have a south window, and my fan shut down and broke for a bit. And it was probably about a week and a half. But the air wasn't circulating anymore, and it's the middle of winter. I don't have the windows open or anything like that. But I could see by the end of that week and a bit, as the fan turned back on, that there was a little bit of just mold growing on the soil, because all my air near that window stopped in that corner of the room. So I was like, oh, what? Nothing died, but it, it was there.
Yes.
So you don't want anything, especially when your seedlings are young, they're defenseless.
Okay.
Those pathogens will just take over.
Okay. So everybody, you see that there is a method. Like there are some, requirements from the cleanliness to the right soil to the light and to the air circulation.
Yeah.
It's I know it's more cost effective in a way, but it is a little bit more labor intensive.
Yes, for sure.
Yes.
And if you walk into a greenhouse, a metal structure with the glass and stuff, some of the other ones, kind of like at mine, we don't have fans, but a lot of them do have like heating and fans and something to turn the air circulation, vent the roof peaks open and let the air, the heat bleed out. So just things like that for sure. Keeping your tray on. How long do you keep your tray on? And actually, just as we pop up, we don't want to go too far. Carmen writes in, "Hey, Joanne and Matt, very good show this evening to get us all in the mood for growing. Thank you for that. Cannot wait until spring." Thank you, Carmen.
Yeah, thank you, Carmen.
I saw a post. What was it? Is it like until spring? It's like 11 days or 17 days until spring. And then it had all the different days. Until like 111 days from now until summer and then Easter, and it was all fun like that.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Mason's written in, loving the show tonight with all the tips and tricks. Just wanted to say hello from Toronto. Hello, Mason.
Hey, Mason.
Love you folks. Can't wait for your lawn care shows. I really love them, Mason. Well, Mason, we have a lawn care month for you.
Oh, yeah.
April. Baby, it's right. Isn't it April? I'm like,
It is April.
It is April. So wait, you're gonna love that month. So that's good. It's a short month because we have Easter in there, which we're not doing a show, but we'll have some jam-packed episodes on lawns.
We most certainly
That's
will.
right.
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
For sure.
Thank you for writing in. So
the dome.
The dome. Yeah. So a lot of if you buy a brand new seed tray, then it will come with a clear dome. Okay, so walk us through that one.
That helps keep your heat and humidity in.
Okay.
into the system. Some of them will have air circulation or a way to add air circulation into it. But there's a trick. The dome will tell you if you've added too much or too little water into the system. So it should just barely fog.
Okay.
So very, very fine particulate mist on the dome.
Okay.
Once the drops start forming, there's way too much water in there. You've way overwatered.
Okay.
So you want to kind of tilt it so that you can leave it on. You can just take it off. I like to take it off for like half a day, 4 or 5 hours, and just kind of let it dry out.
Yep.
If you don't want to do that, you're just going to forget about it, or you know you've got a kind of a cooler environment. You want to help keep a little bit more of that heat. I just like to take it, lift it up, and tilt it.
Like at a 45 or whatever on the tray.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay.
And then set it back down, and then you open the 4 corners are hanging over the tray.
Okay.
And you've got spots where the air will circulate over the soil and through the dome.
All right.
Underneath those 4 corners. Okay. You leave the tray on as long as the seedlings inside aren't touching.
All right. Aren't touching the tray.
Right. Once they start to touch the dome, it's time for them to come off.
Okay.
Right. And then just watch your timing, right? Some things germinate in 3 to 5 days. Mm-hmm. Some things take 14 days.
Right.
So you may want to
do all the seeds? Like what happens if you're
differently.
reusing trays and you don't have the lid, like the lids? Like does everything need a lid?
Not everything needs a lid.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It just helps you keep that warmth in the soil and on the seed. It keeps the moisture in the system. You're kind of making a little mini greenhouse, right? Or a little mini biosphere type thing. Right. If you don't have the lid, you can usually pick them up for like $2-3 at the local garden center.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the thing with the lid. That one I get a lot of questions about. What about my lid? Or do I need a lid? Or it's always so watery inside. So that's
okay. Okay. Yeah, and so when you first plant them, like, are you even using a watering can, or is it only you suggest like misting with like a water bottle?
I
like a spray bottle.
Yeah, I like to use a spray bottle. If they're fairly deep, I'll use a dome, especially as well, just keeping it deeper and moister longer, or more moist longer. But especially if they're on the surface usually dries out first. And usually if you just replace the moisture that's drying off, you usually can kind of lock it into the system. You can keep it a little bit more moist longer before the air really circulates through all the soil and starts taking out all the moisture out of it. So it kind of depends on what you've got. When I start, pardon me, I will actually mix the water, and this is where my tray comes in useful, is I'll pour out the soil I need, and it's usually a bit drier. I'll add water to it and turn that water into the soil.
Okay.
So that it becomes evenly moist. Instead of planting everything dry, then pouring water to it, the peat moss is somewhat hydrophobic when it's dry, and then it starts to shift or float and move away. And then you've disturbed your entire planting. And if you've got really fine seeds, like carrots or something like that, they will just kind of wash away.
Okay. Yeah, so we do want to give a shout out to a past guest because I know this is great information, but sometimes I know it's helpful to have a visual, right, and have pretty pictures and have a bit more step by step. So I do want to give a shout out to Julie Thompson Adolf, and we could have had her on the show even for a little bit, but she wrote a book, Starting and Saving Seeds, Grow the Perfect Vegetable, Fruits, Herbs, and Flowers for Your Garden. And we've had her on the show in the past, so you can go back through our archives and find Julie's show that talks about her book, or you can order her book from Amazon. And it is beautiful. I think Matt and I got to see a copy of it. She does an amazing photos of all of the steps, as well as a really nice list of what you're growing, when you're starting it, how long everything takes. So a huge shout out to when she doesn't even know. This just occurred to me now.
Yeah.
Right? Because we both oohed and awed over Julie's book. So yes, and we did have her scheduled, I think last year about this time, and she was sick and we couldn't do it. So yes. So please Google her, Julie Thompson Adolf, ADOLF. Starting and Saving Seeds, Grow the Perfect Vegetable, Fruits, Herbs, and Flowers for Your Garden. So yeah, she's got 25 reviews on her book, and it does ship to Canada, and it's just a great little book. And there's lots of them out there, but I can definitely I know Julie personally from the some garden blogger flings I've been on, and I know she grows a lot of different varieties So she's very experienced. So yeah.
Beautiful book.
Yeah,
100%.
definitely.
I've actually seen it in like Indigo up here.
Yes.
Yep. So
Yeah, for
it's
sure.
fantastic.
For sure. So that is good. Oh my gosh, time just flies. Time flies. I know. And you were wondering, what in the world is she doing on her phone, right? While I'm talking away, he's talking away, kind of thing. I do want to also have everybody Google Nikki Jabbour, who also been on a guest on our show, and she has this video. I don't know if you saw this about this new this new planting the winter, doing some winter sowing. So Nikki's actually farther east of us, so she's in starting seeds much later than us even here in the GTA or Greater Toronto area. And she's got this great little video that I caught. And in the U.S., you would probably have, those big giant milk jugs.
Yeah.
We don't have milk in jugs here, but you could get water jugs that are similar, that type of thing. And so she's got this whole video where you can start them now she's kind of shows you how to cut the jug and how to start the seeds and then cover them up and kind of tape it and have them outside. And then as the days get warmer, you can you peel off the tape and you can kind of move, and you can open the lid for venting. It's this whole process. And I've been meaning to send you to the video because it was just fascinating, right? It was like, oh my gosh, we could, really get, because I kind of like that idea more than the worrying about the lights and the soil and the water and the fans and all that stuff inside my house, because I have enough to do inside my house. So I'm like the low maintenance girl here. So I was kind of like, this is a bit more like plant it and forget about it to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And then there's some things you have to do, as it kind of starts to warm up. So please search for her. So that's Niki that's Jabbour. And so Nikki's written, and her blog is at Savvy Garden as well. So she's got that on there. So that's another resource for people that are just dying to get started.
Yeah.
So those are kind of two resources. And I'll definitely have those in the show notes as well.
Mm-hmm.
How's that?
That looks like a really cool video. We'll definitely have to check it out. I think as we reach the end, there's one more email waiting.
Oh, well, Rhonda's written in saying, hi, great info tonight. Thank you, Rhonda.
Sorry, Rhonda. Thank you.
That?
No, I did not at all.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. I totally just saw us reaching the end of the show, and Ralph had written in. And Ralph was saying, is it possible to grow any citrus trees here in the GTA? I mean to leave them outside during the winter months if they grow too big to be brought indoors. Does anyone do that here? Example, lemons, oranges. Thanks. Leaving them outdoors would kill them flat out.
So no leaving them outside. And we did a show.
I
Did we
was
do a
just
show?
gonna say.
Ralph, we did a show.
Stephen Biggs.
That's right. Stephen Biggs. Gary, how's your... As my headphones fall off. What's up? That's never happened before. How's your lemon tree?
It's going beautifully, but
Excellent.
it is inside.
It is
Yes.
inside.
Right,
yes.
of course.
It almost wasn't. Matt rescued
Right,
it. If you
right,
remember
right.
correctly,
Well,
we happened to
'cause-
rescue it.
Right. And, we can bring those trees outside in the summer, right?
Right.
But you have to bring them in before frost.
That's correct.
For
That's
sure.
But
correct.
it's doing very well.
And in our,
Nice.
we don't know where you are. Well, you say the GTA, Ralph. So it's going to be that's not going to be an option. They're never going to get too big to bring inside. I don't think. I think even Stephen talks about ones that he's had for 30 years.
Yeah.
And he still brings it inside.
Some big ones. Yeah.
Yeah, so for sure. So again, on our, I'm going to see if I can find it really quickly. Maybe not. To see if we can find what date that show was. Let's see how well these
I'm just
oh,
thinking,
look at that.
send them
August
to Facebook.
21st, Ralph. So our August 21st episode of 2019, Growing Lemons with Stephen Biggs.
That's right.
And Stephen also has a show here on
Yep.
Reality Radio 101 with his daughter Emma. They're the Garage Gardeners. And he's written a book, and he is
That's what I
quite
was
the
listening to.
expert. Sorry, did I
No.
steal your
I'm
thunder?
glad you said it.
So
yeah.
great question, Ralph. I know it's been on my list. Did you buy one?
I haven't.
I know. Okay.
And then Ralph, if you're wondering what it's called, it's Growing Lemons Where You Think You Can't. I
That's
believe
right.
is the title.
And he also has Growing Figs Where You Think You Can't. And both of those things I'd like to try as
Yes.
well, for sure. So it definitely can be done. You should, he had, in the episode, he talks about some resources, mail order to get plants. But you were able to pick one at the garden center that you work at,
Yeah.
you were able to pick up one for Gary and his wife Elaine, and we've been able to kind of watch. It's kind of been a team effort to kind of watch that. I know a few weeks ago we were looking at it flowering and stuff. So definitely doable. I have seen some other local people talk about harvesting and the Meyer lemons and so they do definitely grow lemons. Some take longer than others, but so great question, Ralph, and definitely, and I think was it Karen that asked about the fruits as well. So that's something you can't start them from seed. Really, it's better to start with a plant.
Very cool.
Yeah. So we covered a lot.
I think we did.
Yeah.
What are we going to do next week?
I don't know. There's lots more to talk about as
Most
far as
certainly.
growing. And we'd love to hear from you too. What do you want to know more about growing? What
right.
do you want to know more about how to divide and grow houseplants inside? Do you want to know that information? Do you want to have a deeper dive on some of the more popular annuals or even perennials? That's one thing, perennials are much more pricier. So maybe starting them from seed, that's something we can look into. So we would love to hear. So you can reach out to us on social media or email us here at instudio101@gmail.com. Or you can email me at joanne@downtoearth.ca with a number 2.
That's right. And you can find me at naturalaffinitydesigns.ca. Or Matthew@naturalaffinitydesigns.ca. You can reach me directly. And as always, and did you totally just say this? You can reach us here at InStudio101.
I did, but you can say it again.
Perfect. At gmail.com here on Reality Radio 101.
And if you do have friends that are also starting seeds or, have these types of questions or thinking about it, please let them know about our show. We'd love you to spread the word for us.
That's right.
Right?
And
and
send us questions on Facebook as well at
Yeah.
Down the Garden Path Podcast.
That's right.
I just have to say, Mike has the cameras in the studio on standby,
Okay.
but for a show later this evening, and he's got it on cinema mode. And what that means is it's shot just like a movie.
Oh, okay.
And it automatically makes you guys look like you're in a movie setting with the perfect lighting and everything.
Perfect.
And it looks like someone's watching a movie right now.
Okay.
It's pretty cool.
We'll have to put that on Facebook.
It's pretty cool looking,
yeah,
actually.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I do also want to let everybody know, despite the snow on the ground here in the GTA, depending on where you are in the world, now is also a perfect time to start thinking about your summer landscaping and your summer growing, right? And start thinking about whether you're wanting to do any landscaping. Now is a perfect time to start calling your local landscape designer, giving us a call, finding out what the next steps are for creating a plan and kind of getting in the queue with landscapers. So not waiting until the spring. Now is the perfect time. So definitely look us up. Again, Joanne at downtoearth.ca.
That's right. And Matthew at naturalaffinitydesigns.ca. Well, we've reached the end of another show.
That's right. We kicked off our month all about growing.
Growing everything this March. Thank you to all of our listeners. As always, we couldn't do it here without you. We enjoy you listening in every week. Thank you, Harry, Jane, Karen, Walter, Carmen, Mason, Rhonda, and Ralph for writing in. Thank you, Gary, for helping us produce the show. And thank you for joining us here another week down the garden path on Reality Radio 101.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Down the Garden Path with your hosts, Joanne Shaw and Matthew Dressing, right here on Reality Radio 101.